This is the latest that's coming in right now. These women are en route Sabarimala. These are two women that are en route the temple. This is on day 3. Let's remember that just 2 days ago, Sabarimala temple opened its doors after the very crucial Supreme Court order that did in fact lift the ban, the decades-old ban that banned the entry of women from 10 to 50 years into the temple. Now, the journalist and a devotee are marching. We understand that they are about 1 kilometer away from Sabarimala. The women are in riot gear and are marching towards Sabarimala. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the protests too have intensified at the entry point. Now, just yesterday, Suhasini Raj, who is a New York Times journalist, accompanied by another foreign correspondent, attempted to make her way to the Sabarimala temple. My colleague Pramod Madhav back with me on the phone line. Pramod, give us an idea of the police presence, because let's remember that, as I can see on my screen here, the protesters are at this entry point. They are protesting. We're seeing some kind of demonstration happening, but I'm not seeing too much police presence. Also, I think you revealed yesterday in one of your reports that the 3-kilometer stretch, that's the last stretch to the Sabarimala temple, actually has very scanty police presence. There's not too much security there. So take us through the kind of arrangements that have been made.
Well, as we speak, the second issue now being part is that the crowd, especially the activists, are assembling in a larger number. The police have failed to stop them from assembling. This is the same mistake they did at Nilakal, which led to lathi charge and severe attack on women journalists. It seems like there is a larger possibility for that to occur today as well, because if you could see those visuals, the shrine is the entire path. That is called the path through which they walk. It's towards the shrine, towards the Sabarimala temple. Just 200 meters away from that place is where the activists are presently standing. Police have not cleared that crowd. They should have cleared the crowd by morning itself. They have lost a precious time, and the crowd have already gathered. There are cops there as well. Even now, they are not reacting. They are just only allowing the crowd to gather. It's definitely going to be chaotic, because this kind of crowd only caused a lot of trouble 2 days back, and still it doesn't seem like the cops of Kerala have learned a lesson. There is no point if an IG walks or if a riot control gear people are walking, because the cops there are not wearing riot control gear. They're just standing there. Their main reason is to protect the temple, and they seem to have a different agenda, unlike what with the IG is saying or so. These two women are walking right now. If they want, they are very sure about providing protection. All these things the Kerala police should have thought before. They haven't done that, and that's going to become an issue now.
Right. Pramod, meanwhile, take us through, what you're hearing with regards to the state, because let's understand that the state has maintained a bit of stoic silence. If not, they're just trying to indulge in, kind of politicizing the issue, but are focusing very less on maintaining the actual law and order, because their duplicity has been exposed completely.
Well, it surely is, because we could see from what they were doing at Nilakal 2 days back. The first day, they allowed the senior women to check for the vehicle, officers standing quietly as if nothing was happening. We confronted the cops on camera, and they did not provide an answer. They just said, you talk to the senior officials. Senior officials were there. Nothing occurred. The next day, we had the IGP over there. In his presence, we saw how the crowd was building up and how women journalists were attacked, heckled, and even beaten up, and nothing untoward. Until the lathi charge, they were the cops, the crowd was allowed to do all these things. So that's definitely a failure on the part of the government of Kerala, keeping the situation under control, especially law and order. Even now, we are predicting a different situation in the Sabarimala shrine. The crowd has already gathered. They have not cleared the crowd unless and until they clear the activist crowd. This is going to be definitely drastic. We are not sure what exactly the Kerala police is trying to show here.
Pramod, stay with us. We also have my colleague Shilpa now joining us on the phone line with more. Shilpa, can you give us a status of what's happening currently on ground? We can see on our screens the protests are only intensifying at the entry point of the temple.
Well, that's right. In fact, two women, one journalist from Hyderabad and another resident of Kochi, has now undertaken the journey towards the Sabarimala shrine, and they are, of course, accompanied by a ring of, police security officials. The scene is led by IG Sreejith himself, and they are, of course, now making their way towards the Sabarimala shrine. They have almost crossed 3 kilometers, and 2 more kilometers have to be crossed by these two women. And clearly, along the way, and also at Sannidhanam, what we're seeing is that large number of devotees and protesters have gathered, and they are racing and chanting Ayyappa slogans very loudly. They're saying that under no circumstances will these two women be allowed inside the Sabarimala temple. They are, of course, saying that they will block their way. And that, of course, is the biggest challenge for the Kerala police at this point in time because, these two women approached the Pamba police station saying that they want to undertake the journey towards the Sabarimala temple. And IG Sreejith took it upon himself saying that we will take you towards the shrine. And that's the reason around 200 police officials are accompanying these two women. And 20 police officials have already, reached Sannidhanam to monitor the situation. But the protesters are grouping up. The devotees are, coming in big groups and chanting loud slogans saying that these two women will not be allowed inside the Sabarimala temple. So it remains to be seen as to whether these two women will finally be able to breach that barrier. Because the Supreme Court has made it clear that women in the age of 10 and 50 will be allowed entry into the Sabarimala temple. So it remains to be seen as to whether they will reach Sabarimala temple and bridge that barrier.
Right, Shilpa, and we understand that they're probably under a kilometer away from the temple currently?
Well, that's right. So far, they have, covered 3 kilometers is what we're given to understand. They started this journey 1.5 hours back, and they are, of course, taking breaks in between. They're taking it slow. The police also do not want to take any chances. And so far, the journey was smoothful. Yes, there were a few devotees who raised, slogans and, abused them. But nevertheless, there was no big protest that they faced along the way. But they have to cover another 2 more kilometers to reach the Sabarimala shrine.
Okay.
And that is where the real challenge is because large number of protesters have gathered and they are also bringing in children into the picture so that, the police officials do not resort to any kind of aggressive methods to disperse the crowd. So, it remains to be seen as to whether the police officials will be successful at, this time around because remember yesterday also there was a New York Times journalist who tried to enter the temple, but she had to come back because, there were stones that were pelted at her and she was abused and manhandled by the devotees and protesters. But, these two women so far have covered around 3 kilometers and 2 more kilometers they have to cover to reach the Sabarimala shrine.
Shilpa Nair, thank you so much for bringing us those updates. We need to slip into a quick break right now, but we'll continue tracking what's happening at Sabarimala. Let's look at what's happened so far. The protesters are at the entry point. The protests have intensified. As our colleague Shilpa Nair told us, they have now brought children there who have joined these demonstrations. Meanwhile, there are 2 women en route to the shrine. There's heavy security, as you can see, in place. It remains to be seen whether these women will be allowed into the temple.